All right, we got a question from YouTube, and by YouTube I mean this channel below. So if you want your question answered, put it below, and maybe, quite possibly, if it gets upvoted enough, or if I just happen to like it, it will show up on this channel as well. So the question is, can you explain the difference between having a boyfriend and player vibe, but with examples of how each are conveyed? I'm actually really glad you asked for examples, because this is a really hard thing to explain as a definition. It's really easy to explain with examples. But I will start with something like a definition, and basically it's this. There are two core evolutionary male strategies for how to get kids and grandchildren into the next generation. And one is what we call the lover strategy, which is try and impregnate as many women as possible, or the Genghis Khan strategy, if you like. And then on the other hand, we have the provider strategy, which is pick a woman, be exclusive and loyal to her, and then raise the hell out of those kids and try and make sure they survive the rigors of nature and the wild and tribal life and all that kind of stuff. So one is pick one woman and try and do as good a job as possible in that one environment. The other is spread your genes around. And really when we get to the boyfriend vibe or the husband vibe or whatever versus the player vibe, we're talking about that. We're talking about that lover versus provider dichotomy. So what are the things that will lean you one way or another? So anything that indicates that you are attractive to many, many women leads you towards that lover strategy. The idea of impregnating as many women as possible. And that is attractive to women because it shows that you have competence and ability to actually do that, to actually execute that strategy, which means that their children, particularly their male offspring, are likely to have that trait as well, and to be able to get their genes into future generations. So that can be very, very attractive. On the other hand, anything that shows that you are willing to be loyal, or willing to commit and be dedicated and be reliable and responsible, will indicate to a woman that if she would have children with you, that her children would be a little more safe in knowing that they would have a father around, knowing that there would be a male figure taking care of them, protecting them, those kind of things, which of course is of evolutionary value as well. So that's what we're really looking for, is she deciding to like you based on safety and loyalty and reliableness of at least a decent, that she's at least having a decent solution genetically? Or is she taking more the high risk option of saying, I want the best fucking genes, and then I'll figure it out from there? And both are viable. So what leads to one or the other of these? Well, anytime that you're trying to be nice and sweet and show financial resources, show a willingness to give, show a willingness to be loyal and stick around, if that's what you're leading with as the proposition of why a girl should be with you, you're clearly going towards boyfriend, husband material. If on the other hand, you're showing like risk-taking behaviors, that you are like very sexually attractive to other women, you're using things like jealousy in your game, those kind of things, that's very much the player vibe, those kinds of things. Also, if you indicate that you've had relationships in the past where you were exclusive and loyal and had longer-term relationships, that's obviously moving you towards the provider, boyfriend, husband category. Obviously, if you talk about having orgies and threesomes and like traveling and having a different girl in every city, which you probably shouldn't explicitly talk about in game, but you can imply very strongly, those kind of things will again tend to put you more in the lover category. And things like taking risks, right? Things like if you're responsible and follow all the laws and rules of society, that's more towards safe husband-boyfriend areas. If you're the type of guy who has tattoos, gets in fights, those kind of things, does things that are maybe not 100% socially acceptable to everybody, that's going to lead you more towards the lover/player category. So you can see this sort of distinction, and what it really all comes down to is what is the paradigm, or what is the reason that you're trying to primarily use to convince the girl that you're a good choice. Now, in really good game, you actually should use a bit of both, right? The perfect solution for a woman is the man who's both the woman who the man who she doesn't deserve, who can get any girl, but who chooses to be a bit more loyal to her than he should be. And that's the perfect thing to convey. But it's a lot easier in general to start with the lover type of characteristics, because that shows who you are, that you're a high value guy, and then to end on, or to show later, the provider characteristics, which is what you're willing to do. Because if you're willing to be very exclusive to a girl, the girl has to wonder, well, why is he willing? Is it because he doesn't have any other options? Is he actually a low value guy? Whereas if you're a very high value guy, the type of guy who could go get a bunch of girls pregnant and girls are like falling over all the time, well, the girl would love it if it turned out that you just happen to be that one who will also be loyal. But again, showing what you're willing to do is you can change her perception on that a lot more readily than you can change her perception about who you are. So in general in game, while there are these two paradigms for how to get a girl, when meeting a girl, especially in a cold approach scenario or in a scenario where you have to like get a strong commitment from her quickly, i.e. you're not going to see her again otherwise, it really does work better most of the time to start with the high value lover traits and show those provider traits a bit later in the interaction. It's not a universal rule, but it will make a huge difference. It's not to say you can't start as the provider, be friend zoned, and then eventually get yourself out of it. It does happen occasionally. It's just not the most common because it's a lot easier to change someone's perception of what you're willing to do than of who you are. So I hope that answers your question. Again, it's a little hard to define. It's a little bit like the definition of pornography, which is, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. The examples hopefully help a lot, and hopefully the core understanding of why the girl chooses one or the other helps a lot with understanding which behaviors will put you in one category versus the other.